We're not on the clock. We just have to go.
Make the announcement, Robin.
Welcome to SI Now. I'm Robin Lundberg here with Amy Campbell. You just saw the first pick in the NFL draft, Baker Mayfield. Our first pick to go over all the happenings from the NFL draft joins us now, the MMQB's Albert Breer. Albert, Baker Mayfield, Denzel Ward to the Browns at 1-4. They were the most talked about team going in. Yeah. How did they do?
Well, I think you have to have conviction to take a quarterback as unconventional as Baker Mayfield that high. And really, this boiled down to three players 2 weeks ago. I think John Dorsey knew who he wanted to take for the last month and a half, but they went into their draft meetings on April 12th. And Sam Darnold was in play, Josh Allen was in play, Baker Mayfield was in play. And I just like the idea that there's a guy here who's willing to put his rear end on the line for a player that's a little less conventional, but was super, super productive. And they'll have to be creative a little bit, but he's got accuracy. He's a great decision maker. He's been a great leader in that program. He's beloved by his coaches and his teammates. And so you can see why when they looked at the flaws of each of the top quarterbacks, they said, well, we can probably coach around Baker Mayfield's height. We can't coach some of the things that he has.
Quarterbacks, the story going into this draft, we talked plenty about them before, so it's only fitting we talk about them now. 5 in the first round, bookended by Heisman winners. What do you think about the order that these guys went in?
I'm not surprised. Baker going first is a little bit of a surprise, but I think a lot of it came down to what's above the neck. And I think with Sam Darnold, the reason you take him third overall, the reason the Jets were ecstatic and didn't think it was possible that he could fall there is because of what's above the neck, is because of the demeanor, the personality. He screams franchise quarterback, everything about him. And if you get around him, you get the Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning vibe. He's that type of person. He's got a ways to go as a player, but he's 20 years old. He hasn't played the position for that long. He was a linebacker his sophomore year in high school. And so he's got plenty of room for growth, and he was a winner and was productive in college. Second overall, the third guy, I can see why Josh Allen goes there. And Rosen going fourth, I think a lot of it, again, above the neck, personality, how's he going to lead? Can you envision the guy being in the face of your franchise? I think there were teams that had some trouble with it. And then Lamar Jackson, one of the reasons he went fifth is because he didn't do great in his meetings. And he's not as good a passer as the other guys are. That was the other piece of it. And so, look, Baker was sort of always the wild card, could have gone anywhere in the order. I am surprised. If you had told me a month ago he's the first, or a month ago, 2 months ago that he was going to be the first overall pick, it would have surprised me. I think the other guys sort of predictable the way they went.
When Josh Rosen fell to the Cardinals at number 10, he admitted that he was pissed to fall that far, as if he didn't have enough motivation before. Rosen put everyone on notice, saying, quote, "There were 9 mistakes ahead of me, and I will make sure over the next decade or so that they will know they made a mistake." I love this. Do you love it or do you hate it?
I think there's an element of, I like hearing it from a player, and I would love to hear it privately, right? Like if he says that to Steve Keim, he says that to Steve Wilkes, I would love to hear that privately if I'm the Cardinals. There's an element of self-awareness here where he has to know the questions that were following him over the last 3 or 4 months. And he has to know that there's a reason why he fell. And he has to know that for everyone who had questions about him, they're going to say, well, all that stuff we heard the last few months about, I'm not who you think I am, all that other stuff. It took you 5 minutes to become that guy again, to become the guy we had questions about again. And so I like the attitude. I like the swagger. I like the confidence. Look, I'm never going to tell a guy not to speak publicly. That's not good for any of us, right? Like, that's not good for business for any of us. But just to me, it's like there's an element of self-awareness there where I think he had to know, like, if I do this, if I 10 minutes after I'm drafted, I'm saying these things, I'm opening the can of worms that's been open on me for 3 years at UCLA, and now maybe my team's going to have to answer for it.
What I like about it is it sets the bar, so we now know it's fair to measure him off of that, right?
Yeah.
You touched a little bit on.
And I think where you compare it to is what Brady said to Kraft when he was drafted. It's like, I'm the best decision your franchise ever made. Mm-hmm. You love that story.
Right.
But he wasn't saying that to the media.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I think if Rosen wins, then we love this, and if he doesn't, then we say, oh boy, that was a bad look.
Right. And look, that's what it boils down to, is if he wins, it's swagger, it's confidence. If he loses, if he winds up, 3 years from now getting benched for some other rookie coming in, then it's arrogance.
Now, you mentioned Sam Darnold. He goes to the Jets at number 3, right before him, Saquon Barkley at number 2. Natural comparison between the Giants and Jets. Who do you think wound up better with their pick last night?
Well, what was fascinating about the Giants situation was they could have gone one of two ways, right? So if they take a quarterback there, they're starting the clock on Eli Manning. His football mortality comes into play, and the runway to build for Dave Gettleman and Pat Shurmur is longer, right? If you decide that you're sitting there with the second overall pick and you've got Sam Darnold staring at you, right? A guy who's been a presumptive contender for the number 1 overall pick for over a year, and you pass on him, now you're putting a clock on everyone else in the building. You are creating a short window of opportunity, and for everyone there now, it's we have to win in the next 2 or 3 years. In a way, they're doubling down on Eli Manning. They're saying, we got you a running back now. You've got Odell Beckham. We signed Nate Solder. We have to win now. They're very much in win now mode. And, I think taking a running back here, forget that it's not a quarterback, taking a running back takes it to another level because of the shelf life of that position.
Well, the Ravens trade out of the first round, trade back into the first round to pick up Lamar Jackson. You called this. What do you think about the fit of Jackson in this Ravens offense? Obviously, a very different quarterback than Joe Flacco.
They haven't been 100% pleased with what they've got over Joe Flacco over the last 3 years. Now, they won't say that publicly, but you look at since the time Gary Kubiak walked out of those doors in 2014, the last 3 years, Joe Flacco's the 31st ranked quarterback in the NFL by passer rating. Oh. Okay? He's the 4th highest cap number in the league this year. They're not getting the bang for their buck. I think that they know that. And look, I think that they felt like we have to either challenge him and try to get more out of him, or we have to move on for him. And so either this lights a fire underneath him, or Joe Flacco's just become the player he's been the last 3 years. And then, you're moving on to Lamar Jackson in a year or two. So I like it from that standpoint. I like the infrastructure that's in place. They don't have to play him right away. You've got Marty Morenweg, who coached Mike Vick in Philadelphia. You've got Greg Roman, who coached Colin Kaepernick in San Francisco. You've got guys who've got experience making their offense pivot and work for another type of quarterback. So I like the fit for Lamar Jackson. Stable organization, doesn't have to play right away. To me, the upshot here is, now Joe Flacco, who won a Super Bowl in 2012 in Baltimore, who's been the quarterback there for 10 years, now Joe Flacco's on the clock in Baltimore.
Yeah, Albert, we've gotten the definitive answer to the age-old question, is Joe Flacco elite? We now know the answer to that.
Well, the Browns are back on the clock for pick 33. So, Albert, thank you so much for joining us as always. We look forward to seeing what happens tonight.
You got it, guys.
Thanks. Day 1 of the NFL Draft in the books, and to break it all down, we welcome in our experts from Pro Football Focus, Mike Renner, Steve Palazzolo. Guys, we know who the top pick was, but I want to know, who do you think is the best pick? When you look at prospect, team value, who is the best pick that we saw last night?
Well, it's the best pick. It's the top pick. It's Baker Mayfield. I mean,
your guy.
Yeah, I mean, so for months we heard about all these other quarterbacks potentially going, and I like Sam Darnold. I'm a fan of his as well. But the fact that they went Baker Mayfield, the guy that we've had on top of our board since October, because he was the best quarterback in the draft in every way that you measured him, from under pressure to clean pocket to hitting open receivers, making plays outside the pocket. Baker Mayfield's the top guy.
Yeah, and it's almost surprised us. We were saying it for months now that we thought Baker Mayfield was the best quarterback in this draft, but didn't actually believe the NFL would actually believe in that as well because of the hype, because of all these off-field stuff. But they went ahead and did it. And you look at the grades there, you look at the chart. We just don't really have any sort of knocks on him. He is one of the best quarterback prospects we've seen in our 4 years of doing this.
Yeah, and it was 3 straight years of elite grades, 90-plus grades in the PFF system, and the 2 highest single-season grades we've ever given for a quarterback. So, yeah, we looked for holes in his game. He's not a perfect prospect, but the best QB on the board, and the Browns made the right decision.
Let's do the flip side of that. What was the worst pick in the first round?
You're up, Mike. It's all you.
I think you just go to the next pick. The Giants drafting a running back, Saquon Barkley. I don't care how good Saquon Barkley is. You passed up on potential franchise quarterbacks and Sam Darnold right there at the top of the draft. And I think I can say a bunch of stuff. And I did say a bunch of stuff yesterday about how bad this pick is. But the one thing to point to is the fact that if they were to pick up his 5th-year option, it is going to cost them $18 million. The top 10 running backs in the NFL this year, the salary cap average of them is $7 million. They can't even pick up his 5th-year option. It's going to be too expensive. The NFL is telling you basically, don't draft a running back number 2 because you can't pay him with that 5th-year option, and yet they did. So it's just, I just can't fathom 2018 drafting a running back.
So it's even more the fact that it's not about him as a player. We have some concerns about him as a player, but he's still our top running back on the board. For me, it's more the fact that they passed up Sam Darnold, who was the number 2 quarterback on our board. You have an aging and declining Eli Manning. This feels like one that's going to haunt them just because Darnold's now across town, right? I mean, the New York team's always battling for back page news and supremacy. They really care about that stuff. And I think the Jets have their franchise quarterback, and I think the Giants have their 4-year running back.
4 years.
Yeah, some people are going to be surprised to hear you say Saquon Barkley the worst overall pick, though I see your analysis. What surprised you the most when it came to the picks last night?
I mean, it was Terrell Edmunds, I'd say, with Pittsburgh. I mean, he was 196 on our draft board, and it's not that we hate him as a player. There was a lot of just versatile safeties that are in this draft who can maybe, cover tight ends and, do all sorts of different things. And he has some of those skills. He's got unbelievable athleticism, just didn't always show up on the field. We had heard rumors that he was going to go in the first and maybe join his brother as a first-round pick. We had his brother, Tremaine, as a first-round pick. We did not have Terrell Edmunds as a first-round pick.
Yeah, and we see teams in win now mode. The Saints trading up, the Steelers, they have Ben Roethlisberger aging. He might not be there forever. They need players who are ready to contribute next season. Terrell Edmunds, not a guy I would categorize as someone to contribute next season. Only 19 years old. He's a project at safety. He's an athletic freak. Maybe in time he turns into, an elite safety. But right now, I think he's going to be a guy who you have to sit on the bench for a few years.
Well, when we talk about surprises, I'm sure you're surprised that there are some guys who are still available. Who do you think, including your guy Landry there, I have to imagine he's not going to last long tonight. Who do you think are some of the best players that are still available?
Yeah, I mean, Harold Landry, he was probably the biggest surprise in my opinion of a guy who fell out of the first round just because it's a very weak edge class. There are only about 3 guys that we had worthy of first-round selections. 2 of them went, Landry didn't, and so edge, the second highest paid position in the NFL, a very valuable position. I think he goes early, maybe be the first guy off the board today.
Yeah, I'd say it's Maurice Hurst, but I understand why. So, Landry's great. Maurice Hurst from Michigan has the heart issue, and we've already talked to people around the league who are saying he's off some boards, and other teams maybe eliminated him because of scheme fit, which is we've called that a mistake in the past as well. I mean, everybody needs a Maurice Hurst type of player. So we'll see what happens with him. I don't even know if he goes tonight because of the heart issue, but this does feel like one of those where as long as he's on the field, he will become a steal in this draft. And then Josh Jackson from Iowa, another guy that we had, as our top corner. We debated him and Denzel Ward as our top corner. He might not be a fit for every scheme, but a zone-heavy scheme where he can make plays on the ball. I mean, I think he's going to be a day 2 steal as well.
There you have an analysis of the first round from the guys at Pro Football Focus. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
The consensus seemed to be that the moment of the NFL draft was the Steelers' Ryan Shazier's walk to the podium.
Ryan Shazier.
But while it was a great moment for Shazier, I don't think it was a great moment for the NFL overall, as personally, it was a feel-good moment that didn't make me feel very good. Please don't get me wrong. I'm extremely happy to see the Pro Bowl linebacker recovering from spinal stabilization surgery following a vicious on-field hit. I hope he can serve as an inspiration for anyone going through struggles. At the same time, it also served as a sobering reminder of the dangers of playing in the NFL, in a room full of very young men getting ready to enter the league. Now, I know if you asked any one of them, they'd all tell you the risks are worth it, any day of the week, especially Sunday. That doesn't make it any less jarring to see a 25-year-old have to go through what Shazier did. Yet another example of the devastating toll football can have on the human body, a harsh reality both participants and viewers are going to have to continue to reckon with.
In December, Sports Illustrated published an expose detailing allegations of workplace misconduct and sexual harassment against Carolina Panthers owner Jerry Richardson. The team announced it was launching an internal investigation, which the NFL took over shortly afterwards. Meanwhile, Richardson put the franchise up for sale. It's now April, and little has happened. Jerry Richardson still owns the team. Fellow owners, most notably the Texans' Bob McNair, have voiced their support, and we have no update on the investigation. Now, a woman who calls herself, quote, a Jerry Richardson victim still too afraid, has written here in Sports Illustrated first-person letters to all of those she wants to be held accountable, not just Richardson, but Coach Ron Rivera, the NFL, and those she calls the enablers. She's also shared with SI photos of handwritten notes she claims are from Richardson that say things like, "If I could, I'd shave your legs," and asking if she views him as a second father, a second husband, a boyfriend, or otherwise. SI provided both the Panthers and Richardson's personal attorneys an opportunity to review the notes and authenticate his handwriting. No response was provided to these requests. So with that, we welcome the co-founder of Ultraviolet, a women's rights organization fighting sexism, Shauna Thomas. So Shauna, are you surprised that we haven't seen any actual action on this?
Unfortunately, no. This has been a real pattern for the NFL, really ever since I think the major kind of expose of the culture in the NFL of really not taking issues like this very seriously at all. With the Ray Rice case a few years ago, and the NFL is really, frankly, just terrible handling of that. We've seen that, typically what they do is they come under fire, their culture is exposed, people demand accountability, and they do the bare minimum that they can to establish that they recognize that there's a problem, that there's something they need to do about it. And the minute the cameras go away, the minute the national spotlight on them kind of fades, they go back to business as usual. And women in particular continue to be just horribly victimized by that culture because of it.
Well, the NFL chose Mary Jo White, a former U.S. Attorney and Securities and Exchange Commissioner, to oversee this investigation. In her letter to the NFL, the victim says her attorney reached out to Mary Jo White, but was told the league couldn't protect her if she breached the NDA that she signed with Richardson. She writes, "You say you are doing a thorough investigation. You have zero power and your investigation is a farce." So why isn't an ostensibly powerful woman like Mary Jo White able to do more and faster?
Well, I have to say, it's kind of incredible that the NFL has sort of appointed a single woman to attempt to overcome the procedural and the policy and the cultural obstacles that exist for there to be any kind of just resolution of this problem with this team or any other team or at the league. She doesn't have the power that she needs to make the changes that are required. But the reality is that they're hoping that she'll take the fall if the resolution that comes about isn't satisfactory to the other people watching. It's a horrible position to put her in. The problem with this situation starts at the top. It starts with the owners, and it starts with Roger Goodell as kind of the head of the NFL. And time and again, they prove that they don't take this problem seriously.
When you talk about calling leadership into accountability, one of the things your organization has done in the past is called for the resignation of Roger Goodell. How much of this is a Goodell problem versus an institutional problem in the NFL?
Look, it's really both. They go hand in hand. Roger Goodell has proven time and again that he's not on the side of creating a culture and driving the NFL towards being a leader in the culture change that needs to happen to make the world and the league and the teams itself a safe space for all of its employees, men and women. The institution just cannot and will not change as long as Roger Goodell is the lead, as long as he's the head, as long as he's the person who is really setting the tone for what the league can and will be doing.
In her letter, the victim talks about the complete and total power that Jerry Richardson has as the owner of the team, and technically the owners employ Roger Goodell. So how do you even begin to find accountability for someone like Jerry Richardson when he has no boss? He is the top of the food chain.
Yeah, look, that is the hard reality of this situation in the NFL and a number of other industries where you have owners, the decision makers, people who have pulled all of the power, as you rightly put it, and are the people who need to be held accountable. At that point, the only real method of it, the only way to hold people accountable is for there to be, a public acknowledgement that it's a problem and public demand for change. This is a new opportunity, right? This is the gift that this incredibly courageous person at the team is giving us, which is to say, look, these are the very specific examples of just horrific acts of assault and harassment, and giving us a chance, people outside of the team, outside of the NFL, to say, you know what, this isn't who we want to be as a country. This isn't who we are as a society, and to demand accountability going forward and not let them off the hook.
Clearly a very big and pervasive problem, and I applaud the bravery of this woman and yours as well and your platform. Shauna, we thank you so much for your voice and for your time today. We now bring in our SI legal analyst, Michael McCann. Michael, little concrete evidence has come out about these allegations, and the My Truth in Letters author says she's prevented from speaking by a non-disclosure agreement. What do we know about the Panthers' NDAs, and can they actually legally stop victims from speaking about harassment?
They could potentially stop victims from speaking about harassment, and we haven't seen the NDAs, so we haven't seen exactly how they're worded. The enforceability of NDAs generally holds that when an employee or former employee is paid some amount of money as part of a contract to not talk about certain claims, that the employee has to adhere to that contractual commitment, or they could be sued for breach of contract. But that's the general rule. Here, for instance, we don't know if Jerry Richardson might have violated the NDA by some of his comments to other owners, in which case the NDAs may no longer be enforceable. So there are certain variables at play, but generally speaking, NDAs are enforceable.
What power does the NFL actually have to force the Panthers and Richardson to cooperate with the investigation?
Yeah, the NFL is in a difficult position in terms of compelling cooperation. Obviously, the NFL is not a law enforcement agency. It's not the government. It doesn't have subpoena powers. It can't execute search warrants. It can't compel someone to testify under oath. These are all practical realities of any private business when they're trying to conduct an investigation. And that's true of the NFL with its teams. That said, the NFL has certain inherent authorities in the Constitution for cooperation among teams, and the NFL can punish teams for not being cooperative. For instance, the NFL can levy fines of up to $500,000 or take away draft picks. So the NFL does have some powers, but they are contractual rather than based on some kind of law enforcement mechanism.
Thanks, Michael. So much more to unpack with this case, and we'll continue to check in with you as things unfold.
Thank you.
That's our show. We'll catch you right back here on Monday, same time, same place. In the meantime, follow us at SI Now Live and SI Now and SI.com for all of your sports updates.